Like my mom puts all of her passwords in a pad. Like she writes the login, the website, and the password in the pad, and she keeps the pad visible on the table like a vase. So I'm like, this completely defeats the purpose of having the passwords. All sorts of
That's
shit.
hilarious.
She asked me about like the Netflix, like I'm gonna get rid of cable. I want the Netflix. For me, I kind of took that lesson from the corporate world. Like, okay, I need to operate. I need to have some sort of operating principles, right? And for me, those are my values. So that was the first way that I was able to kind of organize myself. Is, all right, what kind of artist do you want to be? What kind of comedian do you want to be? What are the things you want to talk about? And for me, I had to think through, what's important to me. Things like integrity. I think just keeping things real. Like my style is very real and raw, but I would say real and raw with a suit, right? It's respectable, real and raw, but at the crux of it, it's how can we get to the truth of what's going on, right? So when I talk about, we were having that conversation before about technology, and a lot of people say old people are bad at technology. Well, is that really the truth? Like, let's actually dig into that and see like what is the issue with old people and or anyone really, and why can't they figure it out? Like even young people can't figure out technology too. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been in meetings and the line goes off and you see like some new intern like struggling to figure out like,
Yeah.
so integrity is very important. The other business kind of thing is, what's your strategy, right? Like when you work, the one thing I will say about working in a corporate white collar environment, and I am very happy that I've had that experience, is you have to plan ahead. You have to strategize. So what are you going to do, right? Being a comedian, a lot of people get really caught up in like, okay, I just have to get on stage, perform, and I'll do that for 20 years. And then someone will see me and then I'll get discovered and then everything will be fine. Um, I think that's like the attitude that a lot of South Asians have too with life. It's like, I'm just going to study and study and study and study. I'm going to go to Harvard. And then after I graduate, everything's going to fall into place. Like, a woman's going to come out
Yeah.
of nowhere and marry me. I'll have 3 beautiful kids. A house will come out of nowhere. Like, no, you have to plan ahead. You have to work backwards and you have to go step by step. So, those are a lot of the principles that I apply when I think through, okay, what do I want to talk about? What are my values? What place do I want to come from? And then what are the different things that I want to get to? Sachin and I started a show in New York, so a live comedy show that you buy tickets, you come to. We do it every month. It's called The Surprise Show, and we started the show about two or 3 years ago, and since then we've really grown it as a brand. It's a brand that stands for diversity, access, and excellence in comedy in New York City. We try to have diverse performers. When we started out, a lot of the lineups were just white men, and the diversity was the one white woman that they would have had to the lineup. So we wanted to showcase diverse performers in all areas, whether it's race, gender, talent level, right? We have newcomers, we have pros. Look, my brand of humor is very much like I was saying. It's intellectual, but it's real and it's observational. So Seinfeld is a big, growing up, I watched a lot. I never watched the show, but I watched a lot of his stand up. And what I
Oh,
really
wow.
like is the way that he was able to break down. I would say my comedy is there's really two parts of it. The first part is the technical stuff, right? It's kind of the dribbling and the shooting. I'm a big fan of the writing. Like anyone that follows me on Twitter or anyone that reads my writing or follows my Instagram can see a lot of the jokes. And I like to start with, are the jokes going to be technically funny? If someone were to just read it, would they be laughing? Because that's kind of how I started developing my voice. When I was at Brown in college, I was actually the head of the college Republicans at Brown. This was back in 2007, 2008. So don't hate me if you're listening. We all do stupid things in college. Um, but a lot of what I did was, I would write articles, and humor was the number one way that I would argue a point. And I learned early on that that's a way to get people on your side, or that's a way to easily explain things without making it boring. So for me, I've always been focused on the writing, and I think Seinfeld is just a great writer. As someone who probably grew up the way most, Bengalis and South Asians do in this country, you are taught that, if you're not working, you're dying. If anything, like you're almost taught like if you're not working, you're killing, like, you're not only your own dreams, but you're killing your chances of getting married, you're killing your chances of having a kid, at a happy life. So there's always that guilt. And when I wasn't working, which for the longest period of time that I've never worked in my life before I, got a job at 22 out of college, has been now. So it's been since July. And yeah, in the beginning, it was just horrendous. It felt like I was in a prison. It almost felt like I wasn't free because I just felt very empty and devoid of purpose, even though I was doing comedy, but I wasn't in the right headspace. Because the funny thing is, I got really comfortable, ironically, working at Goldman, even though that was stressful, and that was around 70, 80 hours a week. And I was a vice president. I had people I managed. I had real responsibilities. I got comfortable doing that and then doing comedy, right? I didn't have to worry about comedy as a business or as something that could sustain me. It was just something that I was doing, and I was doing it very regularly. I was performing at clubs all over New York. The surprise show is a very, very big lift. It's basically like planning a wedding every month.
Yeah.
So we have people that are coming. We have to make sure they're going to be fine. So I got really comfortable in that flow of things, even though it was stressful. And that's the thing with New York City and working in a lot of these jobs. I think anyone will understand, you do, funny enough, really become comfortable with the stress. It just becomes a habit that you deal with,